My little one's woken up. Oh, big yawn there. But so far, the dogs are behaving in the dog departments. That's all very good. Our next session is thinking about your end goal. And I'm joined by Rachel Penny and Lindsay Crisp. Rachel is a director of teaching for psychology and counselling, and she does lots of research on flexible study and intensity tuition. And she's been an associate lecturer as well for many, many years. And Lindsay is a member of our art history department, and she supports the tuition on A111. I know that's a module that some of you are doing. Discovering Arts and the Humanities. And she's also worked as an associate lecturer and has been an OU student herself. So we also have Chandri Bana in the chat from Careers and Employability Services. She's doing a special guest appearance. So if you are thinking about a particular career and you want to know how the Careers Service can help you, and we've just shown you a short video, but make the most of Chan's time in this session today in the chat. Right, so Rachel and Lindsay, we're talking about end goals, but what do people bring to their studies in terms of end goals? I wonder if you could both give us an example. Maybe Lindsay, you can start.
Well, I think it's important to remember that people study with the Open University for different reasons. So some people today will be here with very particular career goals, something very special that they want to be doing, and they need to do a particular degree, perhaps. Others are going to be with us because they're developing their lifelong learning. They're here for curiosity. They're here because they want a big project, something special to do that that really kind of satisfies them and that feels really substantial.
Yeah, and I think
Rachel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if you look at any one person who's studying with the OU, they might have various goals. So yes, they might be doing a degree for a particular job, but they also want to be part of a learning community and working with other students, discussing ideas together, or getting a sense of fulfillment through their learning. And often this is the time when they've really chosen the subject that they're studying at a point in their lives when they're really interested in it. So those goals can come together, and you can have quite a few different reasons for studying, and this is the right moment to combine them together. And I think especially when we're all a bit isolated from each other, the chance to talk about a topic you're interested in with other people who are interested in it is such a gift, I think, really, especially at the moment.
No, it absolutely is, isn't it? It's funny because we've already been asking some students what they're looking at in terms of end goal, and some students are very, very clear. I'm doing counselling, I'm doing criminology, I'm doing this, that, and the other. But some students, and I know we've got some access students here today, I've heard from some people that they think, actually, I don't really know what my end goal is. It might be that I just want to see if I can study. So I wonder if we can think about how thinking about end goals can actually be a helpful way of looking at things. I'm just going to get the paper off. The puppy's chewing it now, so I'm just going to get that off her while you answer, Rachel.
No problem at all. And it's fine to not know a precise journey ahead. I think sometimes we have a really clear sense of what our end goal is, and sometimes we really don't. And certainly when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I didn't really know what my next step was. I knew what I planned when I started my degree. I was going to get my degree and then do my primary education. And then by the time I was towards the end of my degree, I actually wanted to stay studying psychology. So I ended up doing a PhD. So my end goal changed over the course of my qualification. So I think that's fine. I think sometimes these things develop. But I think while OU study is such an exciting journey, it's also a lot of hard work, and sometimes that end goal can feel quite far off, and it can feel a bit out of reach, especially week one, assignment one. And so I think having smaller goals, especially if you're not exactly sure where your study is going to finish, maybe exactly where you're going to specialize. So if you think of it as like a project in your house, when you're redoing a kitchen, your end goal is just this amazing thing, but it won't look like that every step of the way. Sometimes and sometimes it adjusts and change. And when my sister was doing hers, her work top changed halfway through because she suddenly went, no, I don't want this, I want that. So you sometimes these things sort of flex a bit as you develop, but having it, understanding that each step gets you closer to that end goal of your qualification, in itself can be really helpful.
It seems like it's going to be a lovely, neat trajectory, doesn't it, of one thing that leads to another. But within all of that, there are lots of small steps, and sometimes it can feel very much like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Lindsay, I wonder if you could maybe tell us what you think about maybe smaller goals. So, within that sort of qualification, maybe getting that worktop fitted, etc. How might those sorts of ways of thinking about your journey, especially if it feels very long over maybe many years, how might that help?
Well, the one thing that I would say is do celebrate all the things. So if you've submitted an assignment, if you have participated in a tutorial, perhaps that's something that, some students tell me feels quite sort of nerve-wracking. Maybe you've turned up, you've heard from other people on your module, you've learned some more about the topic you're discussing. Celebrate that. Those steps are real and they're important. And the same with submitting assignments. If you think about the number of pieces of work you're going to write and submit over the time, perhaps that feels kind of quite exhausting in prospect. But if you kind of make sure that you really give yourself credit for every single step that you've taken, and the same with the feedback as well from tutors, you're going to receive developmental feedback that explains what you could do more or differently the next time. You're also going to receive positive feedback on your assignments. I've marked hundreds and hundreds, and I can tell you that every single one of them had really great merits. And a lot of the time it's harder to take account of that, that positive stuff. But those moments need to be celebrated. Write them down, the things that you've done well in that assignment. Make sure that you sort of take account of them, because that stuff is yours and you need to own it, and that'll give you the energy to keep going with that longer journey.
And I think for some people, an achievement may not be doing something well. It may just be doing something. It may be submitting, or it may be even a partial submission. So when things are really rough, they don't have to be moments of grandeur or excellence. Sometimes just putting one foot in front of the other and doing something towards that goal is really important. HJ, I know a lot of people are talking about sharing their goals in the chat. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so we got loads of sharing in the chat about our goals. I remember when I started, I was saying that I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I was just interested in the subject at the time. And I think that's okay. I think as we learn and develop, our goals come to us. But there's some amazing goals we're talking about. So Paul's end goal is to understand his daughter's cancer. Thera's goal, Thera said she's not studied in over 20 years, so confidence will come and she'll reach a goal of confidence. Alexandra said, I just know I want to go into the heritage era. I love learning about Egypt and Rome. I also enjoy things like English grammar, which sounds really interesting. Chris wants to start his own business. Katie has an end goal of being a real life Dexter Morgan, but she does say without the killing part. She wants to be a blood splatter expert, which sounds amazing. Michael has been working on a book for over a year and really wants to be a creative writer. So I'm sure we'll see one day Michael's book on the shelf. And Jodie wants to be a caring and compassionate nurse. Jade wants to be a counsellor or social worker, and Grace wants to be a psychologist. I mean, there's so many amazing goals, and I hope everyone else is feeling the same, that when you see someone else's goal, you're really inspired, and it kind of inspires you when it comes to your own goals as well. But it's just amazing what everyone wants to do and get out of their studies.
Very disappointed no one wants to be a remote dog trainer. I'm having a bit of trouble here with the puppy. But, you know, nice to see a really good range of things there. And I hope that people are taking the most of the opportunity to talk to Chan in the chat, because as an OU student, you get heaps of things. And one of those is a range of advice and support from our careers advisory service. They're really, really good to talk to about some of those goals, or even if you don't really know what you want to do, but you like something in particular, starting early and thinking about how you can explore and make the most of those things is really, really important. I'm quite frankly looking forward to the ice cream van coming a little bit later. I'm convinced it's going to come around 11, but that you know, small things I think, and every day is different. So let's think then about some of these practices in terms of thinking about goals and stuff, because we often think about them at the start, and you know, maybe we remember them a little bit later. But I wonder, Lindsay, how can people integrate some of those ideas about thinking about their goals?
Well, I think one of the things that I'd say is just sort of find every way you can to make study really pleasurable for yourself. It's quite easy to start thinking about it as a chore, oh, I really need to do this thing. Perhaps it's a thing that, you're very excited about. Perhaps it's a thing you're a bit nervous about. Not everyone likes every single assignment that comes around. So if you can make sure that things in your study routine are full of pleasure for you, that's really good. And for me, I'm a stationery lover, so this is really easy. With the addition of a nice mechanical pencil and a beautiful notebook with lovely paper, I can really sort of enjoy my work. But you might also find that it's nice to make sure that whenever you sit down, you've got a nice hot cup of tea or coffee, to sort of really look after yourself, and maybe even make sure you've got nice warm feet with a lovely warm pair of socks. This stuff doesn't feel like the big stuff. I'm not sure anybody will have gone onto an OU module thinking, and I'm always going to have warm feet and I'm going to make, but that's the stuff that kind of gets you through. It's the stuff that gives you that sort of sense of momentum, and this is something you can look forward to. Make a space for thinking and working on your module.
Thank you, Lindsay. Rachel, we were talking the other day about how students have these wonderful motivational pieces, and some people can put really inspiring quotes and write their goals down in a really obvious place. Some beautiful examples of those. But on Saturday, one of the things we were talking about in our Adobe Connect sessions was, what if people don't really buy into our goals? Like, some people were saying, actually, my family are not really supportive of this. It's my goal, it's my dream, but actually it can be hard because sometimes our time isn't always seen as the most priority. So how can we sort of remember and be mindful of those goals when maybe they're only our goals and not everybody else's?
Yeah, I would always encourage people to speak to their family and their friends about their studies, about why they're studying, and ask for support, because I think sometimes people don't realise quite what the goal is, or what you're wanting to achieve for yourself, and so sometimes those times which might feel a bit alone, you might be able to tap into more support, and that can be really positive. But I think it is very important that you have things around you that remind you of why you started this journey, because at the end of the day, studying is something that is your journey to have, and everybody's learning journey is their own, and that's going to have the highs, it's going to have probably bumpy points as well. I think everybody who goes through a whole qualification is going to have one assignment or two assignments that they just didn't get, or weren't really very, they weren't happy with. But in the context of a big qualification, the impact is small. But I think for me, having a quote or a post-it, something that just reminds you of why you started this, that you can look back on and say, yeah, that's what's pushing me forward. I have a back injury that I kind of live with, and I had some physio, so I had to give up running for quite a while, and I've only restarted like 4 months ago with my running, and especially when I started, everybody else who was running was overtaking me, and that can be a bit demoralizing, and it can feel like I'm not a good enough runner. Why am I bothering? And I still remember this quote that I saw that sort of said something along the lines of, no matter how slow you're going, you're lapping everyone on the couch. And I kind of always kind of keep that in my head when I'm running and if somebody's overtaking me, because I might be going slow, but it's my run, and at the end of the day, I'm making progress, and it doesn't matter how fast anyone else is going, because there's lots of people that I'm actually running a lot faster than because they're not running at all, and so it's okay. It's okay to be in the middle and not the fastest, not the slowest. But whenever I'm having a tough run, that quote pops into my head, and it makes me smile. It gives me a little boost, and it keeps me going. So having that little post-it with either what your end goal is, and it was brilliant to hear some of those different goals that HA was talking about that people are sharing in the chat, or if it's just a quote that reminds you of why you're doing this, or just something you find inspirational. It can be anything that you just find inspires you about life, and having that close to hand. So when you are sitting with a chapter that you're struggling with, or an assignment that just feels endless, that you can just look at it and it'll just give you that little boost, that little, push you forward. Marathon runners often talk about a wall and getting through that wall and having somebody to cheer them at that mile point. So it just gives them a little oof when they need to get through that. So whatever will get you through your study wall when it happens, to remind you of your motivation, remind you of what your goal is. That's just so encouraging. And so I would say, find your post-it note, find your little poster on the wall. It can be anything. It can be small. It can be an object like a pebble from a beach that just reminds you of somewhere amazing that you've been, that's always going to make you smile. It can be anything, but it will just help keep you going with a smile on your face.
Absolutely. No, well, thank you so much, Lindsay and Rachel. That's been a really wonderful session and plenty of food for thought to think about in terms of how we remember our goals, how we practice those, and how we be mindful of them as we're progressing in our studies. And speaking of food for thought, HJ, I'm peckish right now. It's time for a cuppa, don't you think?
I think that's definitely a good idea. I know we've been enjoying our iced coffee this morning, and Scott, who's with me on the chat, has been enjoying some green tea as well. So that definitely sounds like a good idea. And just behind me, I know that some people before or may know that I really love study tips, and all the ones that I'm getting today, I'm going to put on my board behind me. So I think from this session and sharing all these inspiring goals, I'm going to put a note on my board to remind myself of my goals. So if you have any study tips for me, I'd love to hear them. Anything that can help me out with my study, because I feel perpetually behind and not doing too well at times. So anything that can make me a better student, I want to hear about it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rachel. And we'll also put that on the screen. And I must just mention, before I go, we are having a competition today. We are looking at all of the fabulous study spaces that you've got. So we've got 4 categories of study spaces. And when we come back, I'm going to show you some of the ones that people have already sent in. But I'll tell you what we've got up for grabs as well. We've got some lovely Student Hub Live stationery. So I'll show you that. But I must go for a break because it's terribly hot out here. So I'm just going to grab a quick break. And we're going to show you one of our videos about the OU's computing guide. Oh yes, so watch this for 5 minutes. They are amazing, absolutely brilliant source of support if you can't upload things, etc., and give you all sorts of help with your computer. So if you are a bit anxious about study, there you go to people. Have a really nice range of opening times, etc. So do make sure that you, a mustache. Anyway, we'll watch this quick video and then we're going to show you the virtual learning environment, a key part of every module. I'll see you then.